It's been a while since I've done this, but it seems like a good a time as any to start a new journal. Yulia said it'd be a good idea, that times like this shouldn't get lost. She tells me my life is going to change forever soon. I hope she means that in a good way. I mean, Idrika is what it is, but it's all I've ever known. I've only ever heard small things about where I really came from. Yulia always told me that someday I would meet the person who saved my life, that we were bound together by the Star Maker's grand design or something like that. And now I've learned that he's coming here, from Simitu, to meet me, that he's someone really important. Maybe I should start from the beginning. My name is Havelion, and I'm Jardakai. Of course, I would already know that since this is my journal, but in case something happens to me and someone else is reading this, there it is. At the time of writing, we are in the 41st cycle of the Rankashin epoch, year 6, day 263. I'm 15 and live in the city of Idrika, under the care of my benefactor, Yulia. Yulia also happens to be one of the mystics and steward of Idrika Seminary, which means I pretty much live in the seminary. It's sometimes awesome, sometimes terrifying. A lot of fascinating people travel through the seminary for their education, so conversations are almost always interesting. But there are areas of the campus that are haunted for sure. Mostly the ancient zones, where the elder mystics live. Even though I live so close to them, I'm still not really into the whole Jardejo thing. Jardejo was supposed to serve as a chronicle of human evolution. I mean, the word Jardejo itself means archive, but instead, it's turned into a religion. To me, it just means the division of humanity into opposing races, which hasn't been good for anyone. Idrika is mostly Jardakai, which is the second largest race on the planet. Simitu, Arcus's capital city, is mostly Old Blood. The Old Bloods have to use science to keep their genealogies alive, and they don't like to mix with the Jardakai. In fact, they'll do anything they can to keep us out of their precious city, but more on that later. I spend a lot of time on my general studies, mostly metaphysics. Since I'm Jardakai, it seems like a good idea to have a scientific understanding of how my abilities work, but also because I'm not entirely sure what those abilities are yet. I just really want a better idea of what's possible. There aren't very many people my age at the seminary, so there's not much to do otherwise. If I want to have fun, I wander the streets or practice Gistema at Drema Academy, which the people here treat like a gym. But it's actually a training ground for the Drema, an elite group of soldiers who serve as Idrika's protectors. Gistema is their combat style, and is famous for its focus on speed, trigger points, and defense. If you know what you're doing, even someone my size can take out a pretty large opponent just by knowing where to strike. The leader of the Drema, Bodakai, gives the local kids something to do by opening its doors to everyone. You go to Drema Academy to learn about survival, discipline, and the value of routine in a world that makes it easy to go crazy from boredom. It's also just a lot of fun, and no one really lingers on where you came from. On that note, there are basically two kinds of people in Idrika: natives and refugees from the Purge. Remember when I said Simitu would do anything to keep us out of their city? Well, that was the Purge. The worst of it happened way before my time, but the laws are technically still in effect to this day, which is how I and so many others got to be here. You would think that refugees have it harder than natives, but that's not really the case. Kids in general have it tough here. It's a place that trains you to be self-sufficient. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, mostly because the people here live a pretty low standard of life. The city's infrastructure is very old, and parts of it haven't been updated in over 1,000 years. The stone is so durable that you'd barely know it just by looking, but other things are visibly missing. Like a good refuse system. Some areas can get pretty gross. Apparently, a long time ago, the mystics set up this kind of protectionist deal that keeps the rest of the world out. They wanted to make sure that the more ancient parts of the city are protected and never claimed by any one ruler. Mystic Jardejo doesn't believe in ownership, and kings tend to think they own everything. A lot of important parts of history have been lost that way. The city is still a part of Arcus and has its own representatives. We get some resources like food and other things that are equally distributed to everyone globally, but lately, Idrica's slice of the whole seems to be getting smaller and smaller. Some say that the greed of a few is making it hard for food to come by for the rest of the world. Most blame Simitu for hogging all the resources. Unlike Idrica, the capital has flourished because of the Long War. The Jardejo Order has only made the problem worse by failing to acknowledge it. Idrica feels pretty much abandoned, and the people don't really have a good attitude towards anything having to do with Simitu. I guess that's why they reject modernity. So far, it's only done them more harm than good. That aside, the city's sanctuary status certainly has its drawbacks. Just like the outside world can't get in, nothing can really get out. No people, that is. The geography of it doesn't help. The city is at the opening of a valley. In one direction, you've got salt flats. In the other, you've got canyons and mountains and all that. And just on the other side of the valley are the ruins of Zoroastra, and no one will be going back there anytime soon. At least, not until we have a way to scrape off about 1,000 years worth of ice. Idrica is a pretty backwards place, and the people who have lived here a long time have this kind of toxic, it is what it is thing going on. No one wants to change or to accept any responsibility for anything. The refugees, on the other hand, are hungry for justice. It's a social dynamic that starts a lot of fistfights, but in the end, the natives and the refugees have no choice but to tolerate one another, especially since the war has gotten a little closer to home. We're all fighting over the same scraps, and no one really wins anyway. The people here can be interesting, if you can break that stone barrier and get them to talk. You can pretty easily tell natives from refugees apart by their skin. Natives tend to suffer from vitiligo a lot more than refugees. There aren't many diseases left on Arcus, but Idrica is pretty far behind other places when it comes to the health of its citizens. Another drawback of the city's sanctuary status, I think. The only good doctor in the entire place is in the seminary, and he spends a lot of time elsewhere. Anyway, none of that's really very interesting. I'm just a kid with no real experiences to write about, so all I can talk about is the world I live in. Of course, I haven't even gotten into anything outside of Idrica, like Greater Arcus, Simitu, and the Long War, but there are better books out there for that. I think for now, I'm just filling pages because I'm a little nervous about who this mystery visitor might be, and whatever he might want from me. I guess I'll learn more soon enough.